Welcome back to Sullivan's Unheard Voices. I'm here with Amy again.
Hi.
It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you.
Of course.
And so, the strangest thing happened the other day.
Okay.
You had come up to me and you had mentioned that I always hear a song like this because it's not exactly the way that we hear it.
Right.
How does that work, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, you're talking about... Now, let's clarify first.
Yeah.
Is it because of my job as a KJ or my hearing impairment?
I don't know, because we haven't had the opportunity to sort of talk about it.
Okay, so if there's different things. I hear specific songs differently because of regulars that sing them over and over.
Right. So, like with Christina, the only thing I know Cowboy Cumbria is her version. That's the only one I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You don't hear it in any other voice.
Right.
So, if it were to somehow appear out of the ethos and through your radio for some reason,
yeah,
I would hear it as Christina and not whoever is singing. But I think what you're getting at is is because of my hearing impairment, I don't necessarily hear audibly when it comes to music and tones, and a lot of this comes from being an instrumentalist that plays in large groups as well, that you can hear dissonance, the vibratory dissonance. So if you've got like a note being held and another one trying to harmonize with it or play the same note, and it's not in the same vibratory, you can hear the difference. It doesn't sound smooth. It sounds, all wavy like.
Yeah.
So, and also because of the impairment that I have, I hear certain things more through my spinal column.
How interesting. That's fascinating. No, I mean that.
Well, there's a lot of things when you start getting into wavelengths of sound and such. There are all sorts of things and all sorts of studies and theories that are out there and such. But it's always been they've always thought that basal tones, bass sounds, really deep sounds will always hit you right in your
okay.
Well, I guess the Hindus call it, it's the Kundalini thing. It gets you right in that solar plexus area. It's also why, all those R&B songs with those thick bass lines are always good for getting it on.
Okay.
But it can also be painful when it's out of tune. It's more of a... You might see me sometimes in my booth. Sometimes I'll get like a twitchy thing. That's because the sound is hitting me wrong. And
so not only do you sort of hear it, but you feel it if it's off a little bit.
Right.
And I am like, I know nothing about music. Right?
Right.
And so when you say like dissonance, what do you mean by that?
Well, dissonance is when you have two notes that are not harmonious or the same. Like if someone is playing an A, and you are also playing an A, but it is out of tune A,
or it's like an A flat.
Yes, it will. The vibrations won't be the same. This one will be a little, and so it will. You will hear that in the sound. It'll come kind of like a wah-wah effect.
That explains so much. That explains so much. Like, I had no idea.
Yeah, if you look into sound waves and wave theory, you get a higher understanding, and you start to feel music differently. That may just be my own personal experience, but but there is some solid science behind it, and I've found that with the combination of my environs between playing in bands and working in a sound booth, and having a hearing impairment as well, but I have all of this classical training in music when I used to play in orchestras and whatnot. So I think it might be a combination of that has allowed my perception to be such. Um, but I'm sure that other people feel that as well.
Yeah, and there have been times where I just something doesn't feel right, and I can't put my finger on it, and that actually helps explain quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I do want to circle back to a second here because you know how you tell me how I always speak a few nuggets that make you go, what? You were in an orchestra?
I've been in several orchestras.
Okay, that's amazing.
Because my entry into the world of music outside of singing with my mom, because my mom would sing all the time. We sang and sang and sang. Was at the school system that I grew up in. They at third grade you could learn to play an instrument, and I couldn't wait. And I really wanted to play the flute because flutes are so cool, but we weren't wealthy by any stretch. We were a military family, so
Yeah.
but we had a violin in the family, so it got shipped out to Connecticut, and I ended up learning the violin because that's what we had.
Yeah.
And I can remember my teacher at school hating that violin so much because it was old. It's actually pretty brilliant and wonderful, but my grandfather had bought it at a flea market back in the 40s or 50s for my aunt Ellen for like $15, and it's a beautiful violin. It's just very old, and because it was an 1871 reproduction of a Strad from Vienna. So it was just like a couple hundred years old, and from Vienna, and it was a 3/4 size, so I couldn't play it for too long. But to learn on it was great, and it's still traveling around the family. So
That's awesome.
So yeah, I started in with violin, and it was you play with the school orchestras and such. And when I got to junior high, because where I lived, we did junior high, not middle schools.
Yeah.
Junior high, I got involved with the area would do like regional and area where the music directors at different schools would recommend musicians to go and play in this all area group.
Yeah.
For a weekend. They would do a couple of rehearsals, and then like 3 shows, like Friday night matinee, Saturday, and then a Saturday night show. And I did all Eastern junior high through high school every year. And then in high school, I also got involved with the Eastern Connecticut Symphony Youth Orchestra. So we were the kid version of the big symphony. So
that's awesome.
And we had an amazing conductor. His name was okay. I'm gonna get this wrong because I had a PE coach and my conductor with the same last name. So it's Snitkin. I just don't know if it's Harvey or not.
Okay.
I think it might be Harvey's. Brilliant conductor, tiny little man, but big movements and so much energy. And he was wonderful to work under. And I climbed up the ranks from second violin to, I think I finished my career with that group as third chair, first violin. Also, and all these kids that I met from other high schools that were in this particular group were always talking about this all New England orchestra, and I had no idea what it was. And so I tried to talk to my music director about it, and apparently it's something that you have to be a member of an organization and blah blah blah, yada yada yada. But I got my music director of my school to be part of all the yada 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 so that we could finally audition for it, because it was an audition thing. And They finally got to it in my senior year, and I auditioned in my senior year, the one and only chance I had at All New England, and I went. And it was held in St. Albans, Vermont that year. So we had, and it's usually an orchestra, band, um, and a chorus.
Yeah.
So and it was so much fun. We went up and spent like a week in St. Albans, put up by one of the local families.
Yeah.
Like exchange students. It was fun. And
what was the audition like?
The audition was, for me, it was crazy because I had never participated in such an audition. So I knew nothing about it, but I had the piece, and I played the tutti rather than the solo part. And
Interesting.
They were looking at me all weird, and they're like, "Why are you playing the tutti?" Like, I was just playing it from the top. "Oh no, you just do the solo part, darling." I'm okay. So started all over, had a false start, but I still did it and made it through. So that it was probably one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever in my life done, because I had heard about it and wondered about it and wanted it so bad, and this was like my one and only shot to do it, because otherwise I was graduating high school and wasn't eligible.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, yeah.
And you made it?
I did.
That's so awesome.
I then went and did another one that was even bigger. It was the USA USSR, right before the curtain came down. They had USA USSR youth, and we did a tour of the United States and a tour of Russia, and it was so cool.
Oh, I bet you
I didn't
awesome.
Understand anybody.
Right.
Even when they were trying to speak English, the accent was so thick that I had problems with it. And I was making faces at them all the time, and I felt bad about that. But I was really concentrating, trying to understand what they said. But that was an experience. I rode a lot of trains. Yeah. I've never ridden so many trains.
So it's all on trains?
In the USSR, it mostly was on trains. There were a couple of sections when we were on buses, but it was primarily on trains.
It's a much better way to travel.
And even when we got to the United States, when we did the northern route, we went by train, and when we did the southern route, we did buses.
Okay.
Definitely preferred the train. Definitely.
Because was it like a Greyhound type bus?
Oh yeah, it was like brutal. Charter buses.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, really bad. Not even like brutal. high, big, fancy tour buses or anything like that. No, they were charter buses, so it was awful. Put me back on the train, please.
And then how did you transition from that into the current sort of thing that you do with your band and that kind of music as opposed to orchestra?
Well, I'm still kind of making that transition, if I'm being completely honest. But look at me. I've always been sort of an rocker chick all my life. It's like ingrained in my personality.
Right.
But I moved back here December. Actually, it was New Year's Eve, 88 to 89. So I got to fly through and have New Year's Eve in all the different time zones across, because I was coming from Connecticut to here. Yeah. And I was looking for groups to continue playing with, and there weren't a whole lot right here in Salem. Yeah. I did several seasons with the Salem Pops. Say that 5 times fast. Several seasons with the Salem Pops.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, so I did that. I'm not going to attempt to say it again. I did get involved with Camerata Musica for a bit, but they do small chamber groups, and they don't. It's kind of hard to get involved because there's many people trying to be in little small groups, and so that was difficult for me. And then I just started, I was of age and in the karaoke bars, don't you know? And so I think that was where I kind of started switching from all classical to getting a little bit more rocker. Um, and of course, it's so natural to me. At least the singing part. But right now, I'm trying to transition instrumentally.
Yeah.
From classical to this rock sort of platform. But and that's kind of a trip because right now my bass player is trying to teach me bass.
Yeah.
And I am so used to sheet music that tablature doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm struggling with that, and also the fact that I play string instruments without frets, that I'm having to deal with frets, and that's actually not as bad as I thought.
Okay.
Not as bad as I thought. It's the sheet music thing that's really my tough one to transition. But yeah, my bass player's been teaching me a little bit. My other guitarist is going to be helping me learn guitar. And I have been fiddling around with my mandolin a lot lately. And so I'm getting it. I'm getting it. The mandolin is easier for me.
Okay.
Even though I can't read anything. It's show me the chords, tell me what I'm doing, sort of thing. But it's easier for me because it is strung like a violin. The same strings, they're just doubled up. And so it's easier for me to maneuver around it. The one thing that I'm really finding the hardest about transitioning from classical strings to, electric strings,
Yeah.
Are the flat fingerboards. And the strings don't have an arch to them. Okay, so yeah, on a bowed instrument, your strings are laid like this, so you can, when you're bowing, it can hit that one or that one or that one or that one without dragging over all of them. And I'm finding it really hard to find my strings when they're all at the same level.
Yeah.
So that's a little weirdness that I'm having, but I'm working my way around it.
And you said it's hard to transition from sheet music to, you used a different term.
Tablature.
What is tablature?
Yeah, good question. So, so the sheet music is what everybody knows. The 5-line staff with the clef and the notes. So that's sheet music, and it tells you note for note what you play. And the different notes have different lengths, and the rests have different lengths. So you know how long not to play, how long to play that note.
And everything's kind of timed out, very strict.
Right. Well, the same thing, it does have a time signature, but the same thing with any music is going to have a time signature. It's just not written that way. It's, okay. Someone will say it's in 3/4 time, or it's in 4/4 time, or it's in 3/6 time, or whatever like that. But, and musicians understand that.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, what it means is the top number is how many beats per measure.
Yeah.
And the bottom number is which note gets the beat. And that, like, if it's 4/4 time, that means there's 4 beats per measure, and the quarter note gets the beat, which is standard. Which quarter notes are standard 1 counts, anyways.
Yeah.
But then if it's like, 3/8. That means there's 3 beats per measure, and the 8th note, which is typically half of a beat, gets the beat.
Gotcha.
So it just time signatures just change how you read sheet music.
Okay.
Where the beat goes and how many beats, how to count it. With tablature, they don't necessarily have a time to signature. They'll just say it's in 3/8 time or 4/4 time. Blah blah blah.
Okay.
But tablature does not have a staff. It has a little picture of a fingerboard and the strings. And
oh, interesting.
And it will have little circles where you put your fingers, or it will have a key signature where it'll say like G flat or B flat major or whatever. And you work the chords within that structure. That is so much thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a lot of thinking for me. So when I'm used to just seeing and playing.
Yeah.
So that's the struggle with that. It's a complete different. It's like a brain shift. I gotta go and learn how to. It's basically learning another language. So yeah, that's
Yeah, because like one of my favorite bands is Tool.
hmm
And one of my favorite band, they're one of my favorites because they mess with the counts.
yeah.
And that like I have tried my best to keep count. It's impossible for me to keep count.
Yeah, one of the famous weird counted ones, of course, is Black Dog by
Oh,
Led
okay.
Zeppelin,
Yep.
because it switches counts over and over and over and over again.
Oh wow.
You'd be hard pressed to find a band that covers that song because of that fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Oh, interesting. That poor drummer.
Right. No, it's not even just the drummer. That most of your rhythm comes from your drummer and your bass player, so
Okay.
they would have to be together and on the right time in order for everybody else to fill in. So yeah, it's a trip. Yeah.
So take us through a little bit of your process on how you write music.
How I write music.
Yeah. Like, how do you and your band come up with new songs?
Well, it depends which band we're talking about.
I heard Abby Normal.
Abby Normal, yeah, you saw Abby Normal, and
Amazing, by the way.
we did a couple of originals
Yeah.
that night, and most of them. Well, it really depends. A lot of the material comes from Dave messing around on the guitar,
Okay.
and be like, "Hey, switch that up to this," and blah, blah, blah. Dave. Dave is a prolific writer. I'm just going to say that. He's a really prolific writer because he is retired now. He retired early, and now basically all he does is music. So he's writing all the time. There are some that are collabs. Like we have this one song that has morphed over bands even, because it originated as a song that we played. Sam and Dave and I were also in a band previously called Ghost 211, and this was an original that one of the vocalists from that band had written, and then when we switched into Abby Normal, we tweaked that song.
Okay.
And some of the rhythm changed. A lot of the solo stuff changed, and the lyrics changed entirely. So, and that's our Taxi Cab song.
Yeah.
It actually started out as a love song from this vocalist to his wife, and we turned it into a cab driver. Cool, let's just chill song. And
I like the Taxi Cab version.
Yeah, it was very cool. But and there's other stuff that like we do a lot of mashups. Mashups are really fun to work out of because like the boys will be playing something completely different and I'll lay different lyrics over it.
I love that.
I mean, yeah, we did one of those that day too. Because Dave likes to play Working Man's Blues all the time.
Yeah.
And I laid over Take It Back lyrics from Reba McEntire.
Okay.
So it's two actual songs that taste great together, just like peanut butter and chocolate.
So does that sort of come to you on the fly, or is that something?
Sometimes I can hear different patterns in the music that are similar to other songs, but just enough different, like the way I sing the lyrics to Take It Back over the Working Man's Blues are obviously different than how they're sung in the actual song.
Right.
So, and it's, I don't know, it's just something that flows from me because I can hear and feel the patterns of the music and find similarities to other music I remember sitting at a table with Eddie Orange one day. We were so Dora. Y'all know Dora King. She used to be the big boss lady, and she's moved on to bigger and better things. But she still has a. She still meets up with people on Taco Tuesdays there to have a little, self-serve karaoke and eat some tacos and visit and stuff. But she was singing one day, and I was sitting at a table with Eddie Orange, and I can't even remember what she was singing, but all I heard was Morris Day, and so me and Eddie Orange are at the table going oh to this song that was not Morris Day, but it was so organic and beautiful, and it fit very well. But it's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You hear songs and you think it's one thing and then it turns out to be another. I guess that's the closest sort of comparison I can give it to you.
That's a gift. To be able to do that, that's a gift. Like, I remember I had a friend a long time ago who was very talented, almost like Weird Al Yankovic, where he could listen to a song and he could come up with these amazing lyrics that have nothing to do with the original song.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can take that a step further and have lyrics that are similar with similar musical patterns and sort of match them up, that's awesome.
Well, it's something actually, and if I'm going to be completely honest, that song was kind of a vengeance song.
Okay.
And the reason for it was, sorry, Sky, I'm going to put you on blast. Sky Westcott, one time I was at a jam, and this was when I was first kind of getting into this particular community here. Mm-hmm. And my friends were trying to get me up on stage to sing, and I'm like, no. And because nobody knew how to play what I wanted to sing and stuff.
Yeah.
And they put me up there anywhere, and Sky Westcott goes, well, do you know any blues? And I'm like, how about some Reba? And he goes, Reba's not blues. And so that's kind of why I laid those lyrics over the working man blues, because I'm sorry, but Reba is so blues.
Yes.
She's so blues. Here, I'll put the Y on the end of it if it makes you feel better, Sky. Bluesy.
I take it this is a long, drawn-out conversation you had at one moment in time.
It just floored me that he couldn't understand Reba McEntire was blues based. So I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I sang. I probably sang some stupid Hendrix shit or something. Maybe some Hey Joe. I don't know. I can't even remember past the Reba's not blues.
That would be enough for me to switch off to.
My brain just went into a spiral, and I was just on autopilot thereafter, so the rest is a blur.
I have those moments.
I understand. I feel that completely. There's lots of little musical things that we have fun. I like to. We change words on certain songs just to, like, I will, to throw some shade on my guitar player, my drummer. I don't know if you heard, we do a cover of These Days by the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
And during that long pause towards the end of the song, Sammy always gets all uppity and starts saying some weird shit, or, and we're always like, okay, are you done? And then we get back to the song.
Okay.
But yeah, that's kind of, we do cheeky shit like that all the time.
Well, you kind of have to, right?
Yeah, well, it's... I used to get my guitarist in trouble with his wife all the time because I used to introduce this one song as a song he wrote for his reception.
Oh, no.
But, and Shannon, I'm sorry, we were just playing.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah, we're just stupid stuff all the time.
And so what's next for Abby Normal?
Well, Abby Normal is basically just us guys just having a good time.
Yeah.
I know we're not really gigging so much, but Dave and I are looking to do some acoustic coffee house stuff, and I'm still working with the other band. We hopefully, fingers crossed, have a line on a guitarist. So I'm super excited about that. So you'll probably be hearing more from that.
You're looking for a guitarist.
I am.
Hmm.
A solid, reliable, non-ego driven diva guitarist.
So the other question would be, how young would be too young?
Doesn't matter the age.
Because I may know of somebody who's 18 who is an amazing guitarist.
Well, send him my way. Let's talk. Let's talk.
Let me see if his parents are willing to make this. But like, it's so. I was talking to somebody the other day about like musicians and guitarists in general,
Mm-hmm.
and there seems to be a gap of like 10, 15 years where people just weren't picking up as teenagers or kids, weren't picking up the guitar.
No. And so you see that in the dynamic of local bands, especially where you have all us aging geezers on stage, and then the next step down you've got these Gen Z kids coming up, and there is a whole blank area in the middle. You know, I tried to get my children into music. They all played instruments.
Right.
My daughter sings. My oldest daughter sings. But yeah, it just wasn't as much of a thing as it. I mean, my daughter went from cello to bass guitar.
Yeah.
You know, so she tried to keep it. She kind of did the same as mom. Yeah, the others were just like, I'm done with school, done with music, moving on. So,
which is a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, my youngest daughter got really prolific with woodwind. She started on a clarinet and then moved to a bass clarinet, which is a beast of an instrument. Let me tell you,
a bass clarinet.
A bass clarinet is bigger than a bassoon, heavier than a bassoon. It's actually like the size of a bassoon with a mouthpiece and a bell.
Okay.
Instead of that little wiry reeded mouthpiece that a bassoon has. But yeah, she got really, really good at the bass clarinet and the clarinet. And then my middle child, my son, played trumpet when he was in school, but didn't go beyond that, which kind of made me sad. My daughter played a little bit after she got out of school.
Yeah.
And like I said, she sings wonderfully. And my son also sings really, really well. It's just getting him to do it.
My niece sings exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Outside of that, not so much.
Yeah. And you see too that a lot of the music too, when you talk about musicians and they were not picking up instruments, you have this big giant space where there's a lot of vocalists.
Yes.
And, between the instruments and the instruments, there's just, because it was like, honestly, it was like the dawn of the proliferation of electronic music, where everything is digital and you don't really need bandmates, maybe a turntable and a computer, and you're down. And then it's just, you can make your own sound. I mean, that's your Justin Bieber right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you had a lot of that proliferation, and again with the expansion of the internet too, it was easy to get it out there, and so it was all over the place. And if this little Canadian kid can do it, then I can do it. 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 And and you don't need. And I can really, really feel this one too. You don't need the headache of finding musicians that you can work with that want to work with you and stick through it, and
because if it's just you, and that's,
you don't have to deal with anybody else's bullshit.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was between this I really think the digital electronic music and the whole YouTube thing was where we end up with a bajillion vocalists and not many musicians. So,
and I think rock music is starting to sort of make a comeback.
It's all we've always kind of been there, and we've always kind of been there, and honestly, it is in my opinion. I mean, there are certain songs, in the rock genre from through the ages,
yes,
that you could play in any crowd, and everybody knows it, everybody's down, and everybody's digging it. You know, so it is really, really universal, I feel, and it's always really been there. But I know locally that rock is making a bit of a comeback.
Yeah.
Which, thank God, because I love the blues, and I know it's an originator, but it's not all there is. And and you know, and I think on the scene we're seeing more of an indie rock sort of proliferation in the big world of music. So so hopefully.
And the reason I bring that up is because as I've done karaoke, I've noticed a shift.
Well, you know, that may just be kind of my shows. I kind of attract.
But at the same time, right, the other night, there was like 13 songs by Maynard James Keenan sung by like 13 people there. I'm like, that's never happened before. And so it's like you usually have a mix of country, a mix of this, and it seems to be like we're catering towards rock more. And you're right, it could be your show, I don't know. But
I actually had a gentleman who was out of town at my show, I believe Saturday night. And he only sang one song, but he came up before and he's like, "Is it okay if I sing country?" I'm like, "You can sing whatever you want." He said, "Oh, we get country singers here too.
Yeah,
it's not a thing. You can come up and everybody will love it.
You can sing Patsy Cline, everybody will love it."
Yeah, doesn't matter. So he did get up and sang a country song, and I think he left. He was just there to sing the one song.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do sort of attract that because of what I sing, and you know, I think it's a you know, the law of attraction, like attracts like, even, you know, and not all of my I mean, look at the sisters. They're not rockers.
Oh, 100%.
They're not rockers.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's others who sing, you know, solely Spanish music, and then, you know, we've got our resident deadhead that does all jam music. And, you know, so we have a mix. It just is, it's a good vibe. It's a good mix of, you know, that rock with the country, and the new pop country coming up is a little bit more palatable for the rock fans.
Yeah.
And
I could see that.
Yeah. So yeah, everybody comes in, everybody has a good time. It doesn't matter what you sing, because there's always going to be someone in there that likes that. Always. And half the time people are just absolutely appreciative of their courage to get up and do so.
Yeah. Yeah. And it took a lot of courage in the beginning for me to get up.
I know. We talked about our little meet cute before.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm glad you did. And I'm glad you asked all those questions, because, you know, more people should ask questions before they pick up a piece of electronic equipment and do weird stuff with it. I'm just saying.
That's fair.
Because honestly, that weird stuff gets done with the microphones. That's another reason why I sanitize.
It's so appreciated that you do it for every time.
Dude, we're heading into cold and flu season too, so you know, get your flu shots and come to my show because I sanitize.
There's something I've always wanted to ask
What's
a
that?
singer. Oh, in a band.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's your favorite part of being on stage?
That's hard to kind of pick something out. I I love being in the music, and when you're really jiving with your band and everything is silk, um, that's fabulous. But I think what I like more about being on stage is the interaction with the audience, and because even in karaoke, I'm pretty performative. It's just
Oh yeah,
yeah. So it's just that feeling the music and interacting with the audience. That's actually the coolest part, though, because because sometimes I get like that knee knocking nervousness, even still going up on stage to perform. But as soon as we start and everything is smooth and start clicking with the audience, everything is cool.
yeah.
No, yeah, I'm not anxious anymore. I'm not nervous in any way, shape, or form because now we're having fun. And that's what it is for me. It's fun. So I guess that's just that is a tricky, hard question,
I'm sorry,
Mr. Shawn, because there's so many things I've always loved performing because, I mean, look at me. I'm a ham bone. It's just
Yeah.
what I do. But I've also been really big in, you know, interpersonal aspects of performing.
Yeah.
Because once upon a time, I used to do theater work. I used to act on stage sometimes. I used to play in the pit orchestra. Done a lot of musicals that way. Oh my! Um,
What was the biggest musical you participated in?
um, there's been a lot of them. I mean, outside of like high school league,
Yeah.
probably I was it would probably be Guys and Dolls that I did off Broadway in New York, but off Broadway.
That's awesome.
We did Guys and Dolls. But yeah,
What character did you play?
I didn't play. I was in the
You were in the
pit
orchestra
for that one.
Okay.
Yeah, but I the only part that I can ever remember playing, like acting in, was I played Rizzo, of course. I played Rizzo in Grease. Because if they were going to make me act in that stupid show, I was going to be the coolest bitch up there.
Yeah.
And so I played Rizzo. And that was high school. That was high school. Had a good time with that, though. Because, like I said, Rizzo's a bad bitch. I like her.
I had one acting thing in high school, and I played a crappy person or crappy character. I never did it again. I was cast to do. I don't even want to say the name of the character because it's just so stupid.
Okay, tell me the show. Maybe I know the character.
I don't even remember the show. I just remember the character.
Yeah.
Snurd the Nerd.
Snurd the Nerd.
Yeah.
Oh, this must have been like some homegrown.
I think it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted somebody who could talk like what's his name? The character with the glasses. That
Urkel.
Yes. They wanted somebody who could, and I can't even remember what the part sounded like. I just remember like that was my part.
You and Brian should talk about embarrassing school stuff because he's got one of the best embarrassing school performance stories ever.
No!
I won't tell it. It's something that will have to come from him, but
yeah.
But yes.
I'll have to ask him about that.
You'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
And I played flute in high school.
Did you?
Yes. I had... Talk about times where you should have known you were autistic, right? I was having a hard time with girls, and so I figured if I learned how to play flute, I would be with all girls. But then I had to learn how to play the flute. And that was hard. Into it.
I know how to play one song on the flute because I had to stand in. I know how to play one song on the flute, one song on the alto sax, and one song on the trombone because I was needed to fill in for marching bands. So, yes, I know how to play Suicide is Painless on the flute.
Oh, wow.
I know how to play Gonna Fly Now on the alto sax, and I know how to play 76 trombones on the trombone. So, but that's it.
That's all. You were in marching band as well?
No, it was just I was really heavy with the music department and they needed fill-ins. I think I did a year as drum majorette too that way because they
Wow.
Yeah, I was the drum majorette for Kelly Junior High in I think it was 1983.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, somewhere I've got a picture of my majorette, get up so you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've done a lot of just obtuse stuff.
But at the same time, it all fits.
Yeah, I guess kind of.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing that you were talking to me about that I'm curious about is you were connected at some point with the Ramones.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because
how did that come about?
It's because I grew up on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Which is where the boys are from. And so I went to a lot of Ramones shows. A lot. Like I would be hitting 2 shows a week. Either being in Rhode Island or being down in Jersey or over in New York or in my own backyard.
Yeah.
Or up in Massachusetts. Luckily, New England has very tiny states, so it's easy to travel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and plenty of venues for them to play that weren't too far.
Oh yeah. And so it got that they knew my face because I was always in the front of the pit. Always. Because, that's where you need to be. You get to a show early, you make sure you're up by the stage. And so they got to know my face, and I got called back stage after a show. I want to say it was at the Living Room in Providence, Rhode Island. And they called me back and offered me pizza, and I hung out with the boys and had pizza. Dee Dee not so much because he was cringy still back then. Because we're talking about the mid '80s.
Okay.
And so he was still really big into the heroin and doing all sorts of icky stuff to get it, and so he was off. But no, Tommy and Joey and Johnny were there, and it was so cool. And it was just so cool. It was so surreal because I loved these guys.
Yeah.
I love these guys. I love the Ramones still to this day, and none of them are alive anymore, but I still love you boys. And Joey gave me the Ramones shirt right off of his back, and I still have it. And
I would keep that too.
Yeah, I still have it. But yeah, and then it got to whenever I showed up at a show, they'd call me back and we'd hang out and have pizza and just chat and shit. And I found that Johnny wasn't really talkative, and I don't know if it was the whole fucking you took my chick thing.
Okay.
They wrote a song about it and everything. So because Johnny ended up getting married to a girl that Joey dated, and they, yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, the KKK took my baby away is all about that bullshit. But I did get to talk to him. He's like the only one that never looks happy.
Okay.
And I don't know why.
Yeah.
He just, I think I've heard him laugh only a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it was very weird. But other people said that he was not necessarily like that, but that was just my experience, and it could have just been the time period and such. But yeah, then when I moved out here, it was horrible because I had to wait a long time till they were out here,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was right after the release of Pet Sematary. So you had all these little bubblegum chewing freaks at the show that had no idea who the Ramones were, except that they sang this song, this one song.
Yeah. And it changes the experience.
Yeah, it was actually at the Crystal Ballroom where I was Sunday.
Okay,
it was the first opportunity. It was up at the Crystal Ballroom, and I can remember that I ended up sitting up to the left of the stage, right by the speakers, and just like watching people all night because I was so pissed off. I was so pissed off at this crowd. There was not going to be, it was not going to be a crowd that I'm used to at such events.
And it's not going to be the kind of crowd that has the same passion and fervor.
Right?
For the band.
Like, name me another song the Ramones did. I dare you. I will give you $500 right here on the spot if you can name me another Ramones song. Just one.
And my guess is that no. Just no.
Y'all hear them in enough damn commercials these days, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how all the music of my punk youth is now becoming commercial fodder. Like Iggy and the Stooges, they've been stealing their song for cruise lines for a while now. And I'm like,
is it past the copyright date?
I have no idea.
Because I think there's like a copyright date.
And right? The Misfits are being used as Sailor Jerry jingles. Yeah, where Eagles Dare. Yeah, it's crazy. It makes me feel ridiculously old.
Yeah.
Like, when I was listening to these guys, I was wearing 17 eyelet Oxblood Doc Martens and had a 16, 17-inch high magenta mohawk,
That's awesome.
And now they're like in commercials and jingles. It's just mind blowing to me. And not even like your poppy groups, the Misfits, the Ramones, Iggy and the Stooges. It's nuts.
And they would probably be rolling over in their graves if they found out this was happening.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Iggy's still alive. He's not. Iggy's alive.
I'm talking about more than just the Ramones.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if anybody would have been protesting against the commercialization of their music, it would have been the Ramones, I think.
I don't know. They might have been down for it just for the kid, but...
Yeah.
But, yeah. Iggy Pop is still alive and kicking. You see him turn up in weird places other than the stage. So
interesting.
Yeah, he pops up in movies, does guest shots in TV shows and stuff like that.
Okay.
One of my favorite was when he was creep-tastic in Tank Girl. And watch Tank Girl. He was the one who got his hand busted by the little attack ball thing. Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. It's a great movie. Not only is it based off of a comic book, which makes it epic, and not even like one of your superhero comics. It's a fucking awesome comic to check out. The comic itself, it was one I read, and when they came out with the movie, it was even better, and it had like all the coolest people in it. Like Lori Petty plays Tank Girl, and Naomi Watts is in it, and
interesting.
And Ice-T is in it, and Courtney Love did the music for it, so it's got Portishead and Bjork and Ice-T and just it's a great soundtrack. It really is. So,
and sometimes it's those soundtracks too that sort of like they find that magic in a bottle where all of the songs sort of line up.
They all hit in this movie. It's perfect. And Lori Petty is just so awesome.
Yeah.
In her day, she was just all the attitude. She was just had like the perfect attitude for Tank Girl. And I love that movie. I love it. It's still to this day. And it's definitely in my top 5 soundtracks.
Yeah. Well, we've been at it for an hour.
Oh, wait a second. I got to turn the tables on you and ask you a few questions.
All right.
Because those little droplets, grains, and stuff that you actually, after we talked last time, and you waited until after we talked last time, say, oh, remind me to tell you about the phone call I got from Dick Cheney.
Oh, I can't do that one.
Oh, no, it's out there now. We got to
I
talk.
can't do that one.
Why?
Because, it's so embarrassing.
That is just the funniest thing.
And to this day, I would have no idea if he would even remember that.
I'm sorry, that is a great story.
Yeah.
Why you don't tell that more often, I have no idea.
Well, it's...
Dude, no, that is
it's
primo story.
But I hate to admit the fact that I lied about something. That's what I get caught up.
Honey, when you're dealing with a Klingon that is trying to get you, that is like borderline human trafficking.
Yeah.
I think a little white lie is okay.
And that's not the first time. And that she's not my first stalker. Yeah. My first stalker was a girl I dated in high school.
Oh my goodness. Did you get a call from the vice president over it?
No, this was actually kind of on the borderline scary kind of thing.
Oh no!
Because we hadn't talked at all, and I joined the military, and I get back on leave. Nobody knows I'm back on leave. Like, I haven't told anybody except for my dad and my brother.
Right.
The day after I show up, she knocks on my door in my dad's house. I didn't even know she knew where my dad lived. Or how she even got to that part of town. It was
if she's any kind of stalker with her salt, of course she knows where your dad lives.
and this it happened 3 times. Where I would just come back and she would just
Did
show
you
up.
check to make sure she didn't tag you?
This was way before then. This was 1996 or 1998 to 2002.
Honey, they've been tracking animals in the wild for years. They're not going to put a tracker device on you.
That's possible, I suppose.
What
I don't know.
in the heck?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then the time at the high school reunion, that was wild. Because she came to the high school reunion. This is the last time I went to the high school reunion, because she came there. And she kind of made threats to the wife at the time. Yeah, it was weird. It was so weird. And then we left early because it was getting uncomfortable. And as we're getting in the car driving away, she's running out the hotel and looking, literally doing this.
Oh, Jesus H.
And I'm like, I'm out. I'm not going back. And I haven't gone back to a high school reunion since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is it, man?
I don't know. It's weird because it's really hard for me to get into relationships, but then when I'm in a relationship, it's impossible to get the women to leave.
I don't know.
However, more often than not, it's not me who wants to do the leaving, so it's kind of...
It's so weird, though.
Yeah.
That is so weird.
Yeah.
You gotta start wondering then, maybe you gotta change the pools you're dipping in.
Oh, I have. Yeah.
Because, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Because we have had our fill of the psycho pool.
Yeah.
Let's go dip in a more saner pool.
I'm trying. I'm taking it slow this time, too. I really am trying.
Oh, thank goodness.
I really am trying.
Thank goodness. I know you've had a couple of dates out there, and some of them were...
Yeah, but it's hard because... and I don't care if you want to talk about this. It's weird because now that I know I'm autistic and I disclose that I'm autistic, it's harder for me to enter into relationships. And if I don't say that I'm autistic, then they find out later that I'm hiding it. Then they're so upset. And so I'm kind of stuck in this loop of a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Wow.
And I've heard this time and time again, where you'll go on a date, you'll say that you're autistic, and you'll acknowledge the fact that usually means that the person is going to not call you back. And every time, oh yeah, no, that's not me. But then they never call back. Mm-hmm.
That's so weird because I don't understand where the stigma is about it because...
Oh, I know.
I don't even know.
You watch TV. If you watch TV and you watch that show, Love on the Spectrum, that's what your idea of autism.
I've never watched that show.
Don't. Yeah, it's I love the people that are on the show. I wish them the best of success. I'm so happy that they have this platform.
Right.
The producers of that show and the way they pick who the people are to be on that dating show is very stigmatized. It's very tokenism.
Oh.
Yeah. And so they pick very particular type of people who are on the autism spectrum and then make it like.
And here's the thing with autism and the fact that it is a spectrum.
Yeah.
Because you have very high functioning autistic,
mm-hmm.
and then you have some that will never be able to care for themselves.
Yeah.
That are nonverbal. That So I don't get it. I mean, obviously, if you are aware enough to say that I am autistic.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just me. I have a different brain than most people. I think I beat it up a lot and saturated it with all sorts of drugs when I was young. But
what's my excuse?
the thing that it brings to mind, and which is also something that's bothersome to me, is like that's kind of like the same as transgenders trying to get into relationships.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you're up front, and you say I'm transgender, and you give them that information in order to operate within.
Yeah.
They're like, see ya. But if you don't, and they're attracted to you and all this, and then it comes up later, then that's bad news.
Yeah.
So it's like it is a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of place to be, and I'm so sorry.
I hadn't even put that together until just now. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I would say it's very similar. But then also, I am not ignorant to the fact that dating apps are designed to keep people single.
Well, of course, because then where would their business be?
Yeah. And so it's a matter of where do you meet people, where do you find people, where do you sort of get that sort of group. And I have this strange dialogue in the back of my head because I was always raised never to take anybody home from a bar. Like, that's like, you just don't take anybody home from a bar. And so, outside of karaoke, though, there's not very many places that I go where I would actually meet people and sort of engage in conversation.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the loophole in the don't take people home from the bar.
Please.
Don't take them home from the bar, but get their number and meet them for coffee the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
I appreciate that.
And then that's a place to go where you're not taking them home from the bar. You may have met them at the bar.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to take advantage of anybody if they're drunk.
Well, see, and there's the thing, too, is that then you get to see stuff in the light of day.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if I could only have enough courage to do that. I know, right?
You got this.
You know how many women I've asked out on a date in person?
How many?
3.
Really?
Yeah. And before I was divorced, it was 0. 0. Like, I could not bring myself to ask somebody out on a date. And so all of my relationships would be women who came up to me.
Right.
And that's what would get me into trouble because...
Well, see, I can get that. I get that, too, because I know myself, I've always had this fear of rejection and failure.
Yeah.
And, it just gets amplified when it actually happens,
Yeah.
And I can imagine that with your experience that might be a little bit of the same thing that holds us back from even trying sometimes.
Yeah.
And
I'm pretty sure my dad's to blame. I'm pretty sure. Here's another one for you that'll be interesting. The first girlfriend I ever had.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to bring her home to meet the parents, right? So I brought her home to meet my dad. And my dad decided to invite his sisters and all of my cousins. And this was me at like 12, right? It was very innocent. Very innocent, right? Grief. It was just bringing the girl home. It was very innocent, whatever. And my cousins, who were very mean at the time, pulled her aside and started asking about kids and about marriage and about... because they were 16, 17, right? And they were up to no good. And so, uh, not only did they scare her, and I never heard from her again, it took me almost a year to break that rumor mill because, of course, she told everybody about how wild my father and everybody was. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
My dad had a standard routine when I'd bring a boy home for dinner. The first thing, everybody would get served up, and my dad would take his first bite and make sure this kid had food in his mouth, and then would ask him, "So, what are your intentions with my daughter?"
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
And mind you, my dad was a look-alike for Fred Flintstone, East Coast Jersey Italian mook, and yeah, that's how he would come off. It got to the point where me and my sister would always like prep them to come meet the family. Hey, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Chew your first bite fast because my dad's going to try and choke you with this fucking question.
Yeah. Well, I didn't introduce my wife to my dad's side of the family for 10 years.
Oh, jeez.
Because I was afraid it was going to happen again.
Mm.
It didn't, like, it sort of, but that's sort of that, it left that impression for the longest time.
I can see that. Sometimes we just need to make sure that people are primed for the experiences that we're about to drag them through.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dad's going to do this, so just be sure you're good.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't mind what they say. They're being stupid.
I love you, Dad, but you know what you did. You know what you did.
You know what you did. And he was just here visiting you, too.
Yes. Oh, and so he was here, and I had I had an interview with the wonderful woman with I've Got Rocks in My Head yesterday. Right. And my dad was with me, so I had my friend Holly.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So I had her come and keep my dad occupied while I did the interview because I didn't trust he was going to say anything. And at first she was like, I don't understand it. But then afterwards we had a chat. She's like, I get it now. Like, that answers so many questions.
Yeah. Yep. It's kind of an experience when you get to experience somebody else's parents, or when somebody else gets to experience your parents.
Yes.
I have dear friends still to this day from my childhood because they know.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
They're the only person that can attest to the fact that I am not a stark raving lunatic about my childhood.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and my childhood was wild too. Yeah. Because my mom passed when I was 10.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. And you say you were pretty much raised feral because you didn't have adult supervision much.
Yeah.
But you were a pretty tame feral child.
Kinda.
Honey, some of the stories you were telling me, I'm like, oh, so you got to play out in the field all day. Okay, you're feral. See, when I think of feral kids, I think of, like, I had both my parents there, but trust, I was feral. I was sneaking out. I was getting drunk. I was staying out all night.
We lived in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't. So the nearest store was 14 miles away.
See, the funny thing is though, I lived in the suburbs, and whenever I'd sneak out, we'd always go to the middle of nowhere.
Wow. See, we didn't have to go anywhere.
No.
Yeah, we just had a fire right there, and we did have. Hopefully, I'm not speaking out of turn, but. When I was working at McDonald's, we had this guy, I'm going to call him Charlie.
All right, Charlie sounds fun.
Because he was an ex-Marine in his 30s. And on Friday nights, after we got done with our shift at McDonald's, he would be over at my house with a 17-year-old, a bunch of 17-year-olds. Nothing ever happened. He was a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Like, he brought the beer, and we'd have a fire, and he would tell us stories, and we would drink beer. It was a lot of fun. But I'm sure he would have gotten a lot of trouble.
I had a teacher like that in high school. Everybody knew. He wasn't really a teacher. He was the lab guy though.
Okay.
And for the like bio and chem lab stuff. Yeah. And he would always be at all the parties we go to. He used to have parties at this place called Kobiluk Pits, and it was just all gravel and shit. And There were some raging keggers there. I've been under a tent with bricks of pot burning under, and there has been this teacher. And we'd go out to Medford Speedway, and where all the rich kids lived, and so that there would be huge parties, keggers, raging, and there would be this this teacher, and so yeah, so he was always there, always there. He was a cool guy though, but he kind of looked like a Muppet. He did. And funny enough, he reminded me of Beaker the most.
Okay.
And he was the lab guy, and I always thought that was hilarious.
That's very fitting.
Yeah. I don't even know if he still works there. I'm not going to drop my high school name or the teacher's name just in case.
Yeah.
Because he's a cool guy. He made a lot of our childhoods tolerable.
Yeah.
So, you know, as Gen Xers, we did everything all weird and wild.
Yeah.
It's a true story. Maybe we'll have to have a childhood discussion one of these days. And let's swap childhood stories, because I promise you I've got some.
I'm sure yours are going to be a lot more interesting than mine.
We'll have a feral contest.
You got it. Amy, thank you so much.
No, thank you, Shawn. I love it when you come by and talk.
Yeah,
We need to do this more often.
You got it.
Yeah.